There's one thing I'm going to be focusing on this year, and it has nothing to do with New Year's resolutions. I think they're kind of overrated, and I say that as somebody who has done them pretty much every year of my entire life. In many ways, it's actually going to be kind of the opposite, and that is to lower the pressure that I put on myself. I know this might sound like a bit of a strange goal to give myself, but hear me out. As a general rule, I put way too much pressure on myself, and that is a very efficient way of taking the fun out of literally anything. And by the way, I see this everywhere. So I think this is a whole generation. We're a whole generation that is struggling with this. We don't have hobbies anymore. Everything is a side hustle, and we're all looking to try and boost and increase productivity and the grind. And it just feels like there's fierce competition no matter what you do. Now, I can only speak for myself here, but that pressure that I feel lives entirely in my head and comes down to a very unhealthy internal dialogue that I have going on. Because no matter how well I'm doing with my habits and goals and motivation and all of that, if I don't feel like I'm being productive or creative enough, the things that are going on in here start to get toxic and negative, and then everything falls apart. I wasn't always this way. It was some point during middle school that I realized that if I applied more pressure on myself, that I could achieve better results. And so this started a pattern that intensified through high school and through the rest of my life up to this point. It all got messy too, because this was during a period of time where I started to develop a sense of self-worth and identity based off of performing. You know, covering up some of these insecurities that I had. Sometimes things keep getting swept under the rug until it just becomes impossible to ignore. And I think that's kind of what's been going on in my life, where I just keep putting more and more pressure on myself, hoping to always get better and better results. And it doesn't take a genius to realize that this is not going to last forever. I will admit, there were a couple of times this year where I was like, dude, I cannot keep this going. It felt like I was hitting a wall, honestly. And I think the numbers are kind of messing with me on a psychological level. It's just impossible for me to wrap my mind around the amount of people that have subscribed to this channel. I mean, I have a couple of pretty sick party tricks. Man, who am I kidding? Joking aside though, I have a lot of fear around failure, to be honest with you. And it's no different than my high school days, where I made every single test a life or death situation. You know, it was like I always had to succeed. It's weird to realize that, once again, this is all happening in my head, which for me says that I have power over this, that there's something I can do about this situation. And it's been interesting to observe this year how, as a coping mechanism, it's almost like my body shuts down when I apply too much pressure, and I totally avoid my responsibilities. All of my drive and motivation evaporate. I'm self-sabotaging. Kids are proof to me that you do not need pressure to be creative and curious and adventurous. In fact, I would argue that it's too much pressure that is what kills a lot of these things. Who would have known that I peaked when I was 6 years old? So, we're at the beginning of a new year, a new decade. I have a plan, so hear me out. A lot has happened for all of us in the last year. Each and every one of us is the main character in our own plot line and all of the highs and lows that come with it. So it can be difficult to kind of see things clearly, right? You're in the drama. I was trying really hard to understand where I went wrong, and so I reverse engineered the process. I saw very clearly this last year that setting and creating goals for yourself is an amazing tool. It is a great way to give yourself a sense of direction, but it's just one piece of the bigger puzzle. It doesn't fix everything for you. Before you can hit the goals that you set for yourself, you have to have the right habits and the little things that you do every day that compound and that take you really far. Look, you can't cook a great meal with subpar ingredients, and I think that encapsulates this concept. And that's what I spent all this last year focusing on to great effect. Honestly, I saw the results that these little changes can have. But before you can build these habits, you have to have the right environment, or you don't have the stability that's necessary to keep these things going long term. It's all gonna crumble at some point. And this is something that I think I was at least vaguely aware of, but not nearly mindful enough to make it a top priority. And there's a step that I think comes even before creating the right environment for yourself. And I think it boils down to the relationship that you have with yourself, which I think is the most important relationship that you have in life. It's that internal dialogue that I was talking about earlier. This is such a difficult topic to even bring up. And no, I am not talking about that horrible brand of self-care or self-love or whatever they call it on Instagram that promotes all kinds of unhealthy, destructive behavior. This is very different, and it's a lot more subtle, okay? And so these last two things that I mentioned are the things that I feel like I've been really overlooking. And I'm boiling them down to environment, like I said, and mindset. And so that is where I want to place my focus. That's what I'm basing my plan around. Mark Manson put it spectacularly. He said, if self-discipline feels difficult, you're doing it wrong. One thing I saw very clearly this year is that it takes a gargantuan effort to get into a healthy, productive rhythm every time I uproot and move to a new place. It's almost like the part of my brain that was able to develop systems and go on autopilot to solve a lot of the basic important things that have to happen every single day, looked around at my new environment and was kind of like, well, you're on your own now. Economic prosperity comes to countries that have seen historic stability. And I think the same can apply to individuals. I think stability is king. Now, this has to look very, very simple for somebody like me, or I'm not gonna follow through, okay? I can't do the complicated stuff. So let's talk about some concrete examples of the kinds of things that I'm gonna be focusing on this year to make that happen. The first thing is super consistent sleep. This is something that I've struggled a lot with lately and that I've struggled a lot with throughout my entire life. I just have a hard time putting an end to the day and just going to bed, you know, lights off, or maybe reading for a little bit and just ending the day. But I know that this is 100% possible because this last year I went through a period where I was just being super consistent. And it got to the point where I was waking up every day like a couple of minutes before my alarm clock. And I would feel awake. Like, it wouldn't take a Herculean effort to get out of bed, put on my shoes, and go on a run. It just started to automatically happen. I built the muscle memory or something. And in all honesty, there are moments when I look back on that period and I'm like, who even was that person with those superpowers? But I wasn't a different person at all. It was the same person with the right environment that just made it all a lot easier. That right there is the power of environment to me. It feels like that consistency, that stability translates in invisible ways into all the other parts of your life. It's almost like it frees up resources like willpower that you can apply to other things. And as a final point, I'm no sleep expert, so please take everything with a grain of salt. I'm just a dude on the internet that you're watching right now. But I have personally found that it's better to be really consistent with just a very regular time, like waking up at 8 a.m. versus yo-yoing between 6 and 11 a.m. You know, I think that consistency just beats everything else. And I mention that because in the past, I've said to myself, okay, I'm gonna start waking up at 5 every day and just gonna make it happen. But I only last for a short while before giving up, and then everything falls apart again. And so I think it's better to just be realistic with yourself and make that super consistent instead of setting all these unrealistic goals. My second point has to do with designated spaces. I'm feeling like right now, despite my efforts, work and entertainment and rest are all a huge jumbled mess. And I don't have designated spaces to do specific things, like a designated space to sleep, a designated space to work, a designated space to unplug. And I feel like as more and more of us enter the gig economy and are freelancers or do work online, it all just starts to blend together. And again, I'm looking for very simple solutions here. So I think what this translates to for me is to not do so much multitasking. You know, do one thing at a time and be intentional about it and not let everything spill over all the time. That's where things get messy and have a long-term negative effect. And the third thing that I'm really trying to focus on this next year is training focus. I feel like this is a muscle that you can build for yourself, but it's only possible if you stop distracting yourself all the time. And so for me, it's gonna be about severely reducing the input. You know, I just feel like my brain, my mind has a bandwidth, a limit to what it can consume. And when I regularly try and push that, I don't know, man, I just feel like I'm not as creative. I'm not as focused on the work that I really want to be doing. The thing that's helping me with this is constantly reminding myself, why did I start doing this in the first place? And the answer to that is because I love storytelling and I love creating these videos. I don't love responding to emails, you know, I don't. And so I'm gonna put way less time and energy towards that. I find Instagram way too addictive, so it's almost always off of my phone, except for when I re-download it, usually on weekends, when I have like an update to share with you guys, or when I do like a Sunday live stream. When I sit down to work, I'm not just putting my phone out of arm's reach, but literally in another room. And I find that that is helpful. I don't know if it's increased friction and it makes it more difficult to just get up and check, but that added distance and not hearing any buzzes and not hearing anything removes it from my mind and I'm able to focus more on my work. And I found that my relationship with my phone has these kind of ebbs and flows. And when I make these changes and I make the phone less accessible for myself, I find that I feel less and less addicted. It's like my mind adapts to checking less often. These little changes might not seem like they have a direct impact on what I do with the rest of my time, but they do. I have zero doubts. I have seen the weird invisible connections all these little things have. The other part of this equation that I'm calling mindset, for lack of a better word, is like the trickiest part, at least for me, because I find that putting a little bit of pressure on myself isn't a bad thing at all. In fact, it helps to push me forward. It's just this issue that I have of applying too much. And I found that applying too much pressure is the same as having no pressure at all, in that it's a recipe for getting nothing done. Like I said before, it's almost like my body has a coping mechanism where it'll just shut down and completely avoid all responsibilities when I feel like I'm under too much pressure. I don't know how to describe it. It's very strange. And interestingly, I have seen that when I am able to lower the pressure for myself, I end up getting way more done. It's so weird and counterintuitive. Clearly, I do not have all the answers, but I wanted to share the things that have been helping me so far, or at the very least that I'm considering very seriously right now. I'm making an effort to talk to and treat myself as if I were a good friend. I seem to have more compassion and patience for good friends of mine than I do for myself. Kind of a bullshit double standard, to be honest, but this workaround seems to be helping. Something has to be said for listening to your body. This feels like kind of a lost art in this day and age, but if you don't stop and listen to what's going on internally, nobody else is going to, or nobody else is even capable of doing this on your behalf. Just identifying things that I feel an attachment to can be a huge reminder on the things that I'm putting way too much value and importance on. You know, as the Stoics have often said, it's a waste of time to put energy towards things that are outside of your control. And trust me, it can make you miserable. Nature is an incredible healing force. And finally, I find that whenever possible, whenever I can take a massive step back and take a look at things, you know, the bigger picture, I almost always realize, holy smokes, I got tunnel vision again and got lost in the details. So in conclusion, what am I saying? I have no idea what I'm doing. Absolutely none of us are going to get it perfectly right. What an arrogant asshole I have been to ever think otherwise. I just know that these are not quick fixes and that even little changes can result in a really big impact. So I'm just gonna do my best, and we'll all probably be back here in a year, scratching our heads with a whole bunch of new questions. This video was sponsored by Audible. If you still somehow haven't tried Audible, first of all, how? I highly suggest you do. It is what got me into the world of audiobooks. And I am so thankful because there is just so much information and amazing wisdom and knowledge that is just available out there. They have an enormous selection of titles, and I've just been chomping through them over the last year and a half or two. I get asked all the time what I'm listening to these days and what I recommend. And the perfect book to go along with this video and everything that I talked about here is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Ridiculously good, so powerful and concise, and really helped shift my perspective on a bunch of things. And I also recommend Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F***. It's written in very plain language. It's almost like a slap in the face in a literary sense that you really need, or that I really needed, honestly. You can start listening right now with a 30-day Audible trial, and that gives you access to 1 audiobook and 2 Audible originals totally free. Just go to audible.com/NathanielDrew or text Nathaniel Drew to 500-500. The link, of course, will be in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.